Welcome back, Last Minute episode number 155. Lots to talk about today, including Ryan Johansen signing with the Nashville Predators, Connor Hellebyuck signing with the Winnipeg Jets, which is what we'll get into right away here, as well as preliminary Olympic rosters for Team Canada have been announced, and we're going to play the game of Have You Heard These Guys?
Yay.
Because it's not a game that any of us are going to win, because half the guys you haven't heard of. So that'll be later in the show. And obviously we also have to talk about the Andrei Markov signing, going to the KHL, officially ending his tenure in the NHL along with the Montreal Canadiens. So let's get started first with the goaltender of the Winnipeg Jets, Connor Hellebyuck, signing a one-year deal worth 2.25. 2.25. Okay. Yes, I didn't have it in front of me. So
1 year,
as you can tell, I'm
2.25.
So why 1 year?
I was wondering the same thing. I thought they'd go 2, so
and
that,
at least match Steve
so
Mason.
that in 2 years they can decide if they want to bring Mason back, if Hellebuck's earned a bigger contract. Because now, if Hellebuck plays really well this year, then you're on the hook for a bigger contract next year, and then you already have Steve Mason making. So I mean, he's already making just over $4 million for 2 years. So,
but let's put this into perspective here. Okay, so Connor Hellebyuck, 24 years old, up at the end of this year. Michael Hutchinson, 27 years old, up at the end of this year. Eric Comrie, 22 years old, up at the end of this year. What do you think, Covey? Which goalie should they keep?
Bruce, what's up, man?
I said Covey. This isn't Covey. This is Bruce.
That is Bruce.
That's the other dog. He just walked away from me. He's not happy. I called him the wrong name.
He grunted and left the room.
Okay,
That's what
regardless
he thinks about the contract.
You have 3 goalies, all under the age of 30, that you have to figure out what your contingency plan with them is moving forward.
Yep.
So, what is their actual plan here?
That's a good question. I really don't know.
Does a 1-year contract mean that they're going to evaluate both Eric Comrie and Connor Hellebyuck and maybe choose between the two of them at the end of the season?
That's the other thing I was thinking too, is if Hellebyuck doesn't have a great year, what do you do at the end of the year? Do you even sign him at that point?
Or do you try and
use him as a trade bait? Because I mean, Steve Mason's here for 2 years, potentially longer. I mean, if things go well. But yeah, that's the other side of it too. Because
is it time to kind of see what Eric Comrie, like, I've always thought that first guy call up over Michael Hutchinson is going to be Eric Comrie. Personally, I just think that we have to see what this kid has, because from what I'm hearing from a lot of people who've watched both Hellebyuck and Comrie progress, I remember the first year Comrie came in, people said, well, Hellebuck's miles ahead of him. Now Comrie's caught up very quickly, and he's looking very good in the AHL, and I'm looking forward to watching some games this year with him, with a more mature lineup in front of him as well, because that Moose team has been young for a few years, and now they're a little bit older, and now they've got some experience there, that it could be a much different team now that are playing for the Moose this year. Mm-hmm. And with that being said, though, I am very curious to see how this plays out, and it's one of those things that from the moment the Jets have come back, we haven't really had a solidified number one, have never really had a solidified goalie situation, because when Pavelec was here the first year, Chris Mason was still playing very good hockey at the time, and people were wondering, do we play Mason over Pavelec? And then you had the situation when El Montoya came in, and El Montoya was playing well. Then you had the other situation with Michael Hutchinson playing well. So we never really had a dominant number one guy. And I don't know if that's what we should have, or if we should just continue going with this carousel of goaltenders that move around all the time, which this could indicate that they're trying to see what they have. That if Hellebuck's not their guy, then they want to try Comrie out. I don't know, but it did strike me as odd that they only signed him for 1 season.
It did to me as well. I thought at least 2. Maybe they're confident enough that he'll have a good year, and then, they sign him to an extension at the end of the year, and they say, another year of competition, but after that it's yours. I mean, but as I say that, why, if he has the year you think he's going to have,
but if you're limited,
if he has a year where you give him starting money, like the money a starting goalie gets, why do you have Steve Mason next year?
And
do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean exactly.
Because if you give him starting money, he doesn't need to compete with anybody. But if Steve Mason's there, he's going to have to compete.
The other argument too is how much money are you willing to give Hellebyuck next season? Let's say Hellebyuck comes into the role that they want him to come into, which is going to be 50-55 games, which he probably won't get. I'm still thinking that they're going to go more onto Steve Mason's side, giving him more like 50 games. But regardless, let's say that Hellebyuck plays 50-55 games, wins 35 of those games. Mm-hmm. Pulls the Jets in the playoffs, pulls them through a playoff round. Are you thinking that you're going to be able to get him for less than $5 million? Because I don't. At that point, now you're paying him 5.2. Or 5.2, 5.3, whatever. It's going to be a contract that's around the $5 million mark, which is... It's understandable. It's fine. But now you have Hellebyuck and Mason combining for $9.4 million, hypothetically.
Yep.
And I don't know if I'm okay with that, especially from the Jets' point of view, where, okay, you got one more year. That following year, you have to sign Line. But regardless of that, you still run into issues because Morrissey's up at the end of this year. Trouba's up at the end of this year. We've talked about it at length at who's up at the end of this season. Mm-hmm. That why would you risk losing one of those guys to have an inflated back end contract, like inflated back end goaltending with high contracts? Like, I don't mind the Steve Mason signing. I think I said that I liked it. I don't mind it. Still don't mind it. I'm excited to see what he can do. But regardless of that, I don't really know what their plan here is. It did strike me as odd, and maybe it was one of those things that Hellebyuck didn't want to take term, and they agreed that, okay, you're only going to get this much money, but he didn't do anything, in my opinion, that made me think that he was worth more than the money that he got.
No.
Like, he's only played a year and a half, 2 years. So
I think what he was given was spot on what he's worth at the moment.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's the term that is confusing. Because, I mean, you're trying to look at beyond this year. I mean, this year it's fine. They're going to have 2 goalies, but beyond this year, what's going to happen?
So, through 82 games, 82 career games in the NHL, 271 goals against average, and a 910 save percentage. The save percentage is Like, realistically, to be, I would say, a top 30 goalie, you want to be above... top 20 goalie, you want to be above 915. I say the average goalie in the NHL probably has about a 915 save percentage. I could be wrong. Regardless of that, I don't think the Jets are great without a great goalie. Having mediocre and average goaltending isn't going to take them very far, and really doesn't take any team very far.
Oh. And it's been their problem.
Yeah, exactly.
For the last 6 years. Well, the 6 years they've been here, that's been their problem.
And the thing is I still believe that they might have brought him up too soon from the AHL. Like, in all reality, he's almost played as many NHL games as he played AHL games.
Yeah.
And there's kind of that, I've talked about on the podcast before, where there's a thing that most goaltenders play over 100 games, 120 games in the AHL before they graduate. Yeah.
I remember listening to that, yeah.
Yeah, over
most
150.
of the starters you look around the league, the elite guys, they played about 150 games in the AHL.
Wow. And that's just the thing.
And Hellebuck's played half that. So.
Exactly. And that's where kind of these growing pains are coming from. But the question is, how long...
Yeah.
I
agree. And I think the Jets have drafted well. They've brought their young players up well. They've made good free agent signings, but their goaltending has been one thing that I don't think they've handled well. Maybe they did the best that they could.
No, and
given the cards that they had, but ideally, I don't think it's been the progression that they want. Yeah, and it's like you said, it's just the end of the year is going to be interesting because if you're paying Hellebyuck starting money, why is he competing for a starting job next year? You know what I mean?
Or is your plan to give him this deal now, to give him, let's say, another bridge, we'll say, like a 3-3 or 3 by 3.5?
He'll be 25 though at the end of the year. Can you bridge him at 25? Like, would you think he'd go for
It's all well. The thing is where he I believe he'll have his arbitration rights next year.
He had him this year because he was supposed to go for a hearing, but they got
so he has his arbitration.
But they got it done ahead of time. Yeah.
So let's say in reality, I could see them pulling like a 3 for 3.5 deal, and that might buy them time, and that might be what they're banking on. The Steve Mason deal, buy them another year, and then Hellebyuck for 3 years, we'll say after this year. buy them time to see if Eric Comrie can step in and be the starter. Because if he's everything people are talking him up to be, maybe Eric Comrie is the next guy. Because he's been in the AHL now for 2 years. He's been the solo starter, essentially. Like, last year, he was the guy on a pretty bad team. They're still not great. But he's decent. And it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to go that way. Because they eventually need to go one path. And we've seen other teams take, for instance, Edmonton, Toronto, Calgary's done this, but not to the same extent, where you say, okay, we're a young team. We just need to go out, sign a guy, maybe overpay for him a bit to make him our guy. Colorado did with Semyon Varlamov. You could argue that was a good deal or not. I think at the time it was fine. It complimented Colorado. It's just they haven't been able to fill out the team around them. I still think Varlamov is a very good goalie. Other than that, you look at Toronto with getting Frederik Andersen. Frederik Andersen's on the Jets, and I know that our other guest host, Matt Drabers, made this point many times. If Frederik Andersen's on the Jets last season, the Jets probably are in the playoffs with the way he played. Because he got over some terrible yips at the start of the year and really carried that team throughout the rest of the season. Regardless of that. And then you look at Edmonton with Cam Talbot, where they went out and they signed a guy instead of developing. So the Jets have to, at one point, commit to one thing. Either say, we're going to go out and sign a guy and make him our guy, go to somebody who has an extra goaltender. You know, the anti-Ranta situation is what we talked about earlier. Or we say we're gonna just stick to Hellebyuck or stick to Comrie. This flip-flopping, short term. I think you look at the teams with success in the NHL right now. The Chicago Blackhawks, LA Kings, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the teams that have done, and the Boston Bruins. The 4 teams that have won in this decade, we'll say from 2010 on, they've had a combined of 3 different goalies win them the cups. 3 different goalies. Because Matt Murray for Pittsburgh, now granted, Marc-Andre Fleury is part of that, but regardless, Matt Murray, Jonathan Quick, then you have Corey Crawford for 2, and then you have Antti Niemi for 1. And then Tuukka Rask. But you look how long Tuukka Rask's been on Boston. You look how long Quick's been with LA. I think goaltending is one of those places where you get a guy and you leave him there forever. Look at Nabokov. Look how long he lasted in San Jose.
For sure.
Even though San Jose never won. But this is a situation where I think the Jets need to figure it out. They are great. And I think they have the talent pool in the net to have an elite goalie. They just need to find which one is the elite goalie.
How long is Hellebuck's window to become a starter? He's 24 right now.
This might be it.
Like this year.
This year.
Yeah. Because, if you look at that side of things, maybe just age-wise, maybe they say, if it's not this year, maybe it's not going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree.
And then you move on. You move to the younger guy, Comrie. You can always give Mason, Mason's
Or do you leave... Here's the other argument, is then at that point you say, okay, Hellebuck's not going to be the guy. We're going to sign him to another 1-year contract. He's going to play behind Mason for another year. And then after that, we'll bring Comrie up. And essentially, I still think Comrie should have this year and next year in the AHL. Maybe play a few games, play like 5-10 games in the next 2 years combined. Get a taste. Know what it's going to take to get to that next level.
Yeah.
I think it could be beneficial for him. I would love to see him play a couple preseason games as well. Get the full game, not just play a period, play half the game. Play 60 minutes, play in the preseason. And give the Jets something to look forward to, because I think he can be a stellar goaltender. Yeah.
Well, and I think Hellebuck the next year or two, I think that's going to be, there's going to have to come a decision. And I honestly, if things don't go well for him, I can see them moving on. I can see them extending Mason for another couple of years, bringing Comrie up, and let Comrie kind of back Mason up for a few more years, and then in maybe 3 or 4 years from now, if Steve Mason's going to be mid-30s or close to mid-30s, then that's when Eric Comrie gets his chance.
And then the other argument is what do you do with Michael Hutchinson too? Because he's still
there. Well,
I think
he's going to be in the AHL because they can put him. Well,
I think he's a competent backup.
He'll have to go wait. Yeah.
He doesn't have.
You almost have to think though that if they could get something for him to trade it, they probably would have by now. Mm-hmm. So you almost maybe wonder like he's not as highly valued as we think he is.
But I also don't think that goalie market is as. You don't hear teams saying, "Oh, we really desperately need a backup."
Yeah.
The only team that really desperately could use a backup would be the Toronto Maple Leafs. But a lot of teams right now are running a veteran goalie, young second goalie. Washington with Holtby, Grubauer. Columbus with Bobrovsky and Korpisalo. I'm trying to think of more examples. Well, you had Pittsburgh with Murray and Fleury. Ottawa's sort of kind of... I think Ottawa's a weird situation with goaltenders. But
I think Hutch ends up in the AHL.
Yeah, so do I. I don't see him playing in the NHL. But
no, I mean, if there's an injury, I think he gets the call over Comrie.
Yeah, the other thing too, though, is through waivers, would a team like Vancouver snatch him up?
Well, I guess that's the risk you take, right? I mean, he's only got 1 year left, and then he's a UFA. I can't really see him being around after the 1 year. So, but I mean, yeah,
it's gonna be interesting
for the first time that there's competition in the net, which is good, because it's always been Pavlik's net. As much as people thought it should be Hellebyuck's, it was Pavlik's, and then they gave it to Hellebyuck. But there was no competition. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it wasn't like Hutchinson was going to steal the net.
Yeah, so I think having competition is good.
Having a guy that's been a starter, has been to the playoffs, has been in those spots is huge. And he knows what it's like to be a young goalie and coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas some goalies don't really get it because Steve Mason was just thrown into it when he was in Columbus. It was like, oh, okay, here you go. You're going to be the starter. Mm-hmm. You go. And I think that's a unique experience for a lot of goalies because it's a different world going from junior to the NHL. It's different for a player than it is a goalie. Mm-hmm. You're facing multitude of different types of shots when you're in junior, whereas the NHL, everything's right where they want it to be almost every time, mm-hmm. and you have to be lightning quick, and you have to react so much faster, whereas in junior there's so much goofiness to it because of its being a little bit less structured, mm-hmm. that it's a little bit less predictable. I think the NHL has some predictability to it from a goaltender point of view, but at the same time I think it's easier to be a good goalie in junior than it is in the NHL.
Yep.
Because the guys on the fourth line aren't elite scorers, whereas in the NHL, guys in the fourth line can still score goals.
Yeah.
Like look at Paul Bissonnette's junior stats; they're pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And
Chris Thorber.
Exactly. So you got guys like that. So it's interesting. But to kind of end this off, I would be surprised that if Connor Hellebyuck has a bad season with the Jets this year, that they don't look to Eric Comrie. If not next year, I don't want it to be next year, the year after, because I think maybe it's time to move on from him. I understand the loyalty that the Jets organization has towards their goaltenders, but I think that it's time to move on.
Well, and they also have to realize too that I think their window, it's not going to close in 4 or 5 years, but
it's a hell of a lot harder.
In 4 or 5 years, a lot of their veteran guys are probably not going to be here anymore. So if they really want to win with the team they have, if they really think the team that they have can win, they're going to have to do it probably the next 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. Assuming Blake Wheeler gets re-signed, which I think they'll try as hard as they can to do. Dustin Byfuglien's here for 4 more years. Mm-hmm. So like you said, they don't have as much time as they've had in the last 3 or 4 years to kind of say, we'll wait and see.
They have to pick a path and choose it and stay down that path.
They're going to have to decide probably at the end of the year.
And totally. I guess the contract in my mind shows that they're a little uneasy about what the plan is.
Yeah. I mean, if you want my opinion just on gut feel, I feel like Comrie's probably going to get the nod. I think
he shows
seems
flashes.
To me the way it's going to go.
He shows flashes of good. Of being a good goalie, of being a competent, number one
for them,
guy that you can rely on, but he hasn't shown it consistently enough.
The thing too is if Hellebyuck becomes the starter, then do you try and keep Steve Mason as a backup?
Yeah.
For maybe the next 4 or 5 years, just in case.
Maybe.
Because I don't think you keep Comrie and Hellebyuck on the same team.
No, I don't think so either. That's the interesting thing. You have to figure out what your plan is with Comrie if Hellebyuck succeeds.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have a John Gibson, Frederick Anderson situation. You're going to have teams chomping at the bit to try to get your young goaltender.
Yep.
And it could be a team like Colorado that knocks on the door and says, we have no one because we didn't protect Picard. We decided to protect Varlamov, a goalie with a terrible contract, versus protecting a pretty good goaltender that should be our starter over Varlamov. Nothing against Varlamov, just why they would not have taken that contract.
Yep, well, for sure.
And if they did, fine. Then you have Fleury and Varlamov. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
You could trade one of them.
Yep.
Regardless, that's beside the point. We have a message from Cameron that we have to read.
Oh yeah, we probably should read it. I'll let you read this one.
What?
I'll let you read this.
Oh yeah, for sure. So in regards to the apparent quote-unquote kidnapping, this is how Cam's putting it, that we've done to him. This is his story. I'll tell you the real story after. They came in much like Miley in a wrecking ball. Beat me up to the point of blacking out, and the next thing I know, I wake up in the Arctic Circle. They both must have connections within the flight industry to get away with sending a human body locked up in a box up to the north. Fun fact, none of it is cold and they have no trees. I reckon it will take me a week to find my way back. Plan 1 is to befriend a polar bear and ride it back to Winnipeg. Plan 2, move to Tampere, Finland, befriend Patrick Laine and get him to cover my cost to fly back home. Plan 3, wait until the time is right and steal a plane, go from there. Plan 3 is now Plan 1, and Plan 1 is now Plan 2. I don't want to be friends with Patrick Laine. He can't even spell Patrick right. Austin is better anyways. Thank you, Cameron. Where was I? Oh, right. See you monsters next week. Storms are brewing. So, in other words, Cameron went up to the Arctic Circle. He fell in love with a seal, and he is now getting married.
He will never be back.
He will never be back. He is officially...
Did he say it'll take him a week to find his way back?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's
the
pretty
question
good,
that I have is, like, people
You're
normally...
walking back from the Arctic in a week.
Yeah, exactly. But my question to him is normally when people kidnap you, which we didn't do...
Should have, but we didn't.
We didn't. Don't they normally steal your communication in some way, shape, or form?
You'd think.
Yeah, but he's been able to listen to the podcast and be able to comment.
And usually when you kidnap
clearly
someone,
he's there on his own reserve. We told him that it's going to be our show, and he couldn't take it, so he moved away and married a seal. The best part about the entire ceremony, it was beautiful, was they played Kiss from a Rose, and the seal tried to sing it, and it was adorable.
The part that I find impressive is that he's going to move to Finland, befriend Patrick Laine, and walk back to Winnipeg in a week.
It's quite a plan.
That's impressive. If you can do it,
the fact that he wanted to tame a polar bear, I felt that we were part of Minecraft for a second there because, you know, taming animals. But if he rode back into Winnipeg with like a harpoon in one hand, his wife seal in the other hand, on top of a polar bear with a saddle, he would have won life.
Never say a bad thing about
him
again.
Exactly. Would have won the internet. You win the internet.
I would buy a Flyers jersey if that happened. Any player Cam wants.
Yes.
For me, not for him.
So Cam is currently on his honeymoon with his wife, Seal.
He sent us some pictures of him, which we will tweet maybe.
We'll ask him for permission.
He looks kind of dead in the pictures. We didn't do anything to him, I swear to God. We didn't do it.
He says pictures for proof. I don't even know where this is. So I don't
By the way,
he might have been kidnapped by someone else.
Who took a picture of him if
Exactly.
he's in the middle of nowhere? That's what I want to know.
Exactly.
He's working with someone. I don't like it.
This is
I don't like it.
questioning.
Swerve.
Do you want to know the other thing I don't like? The NHL not going to the Olympics.
Okay. That's not what I was going to say. But
No,
okay.
no. So now it's time to play a game of Have You Heard of This Guy?
Let's do it.
Starring the preliminary rosters for the Olympic pre-tournament games.
Okay.
Okay. So this is for the Sochi Hockey Open. So this is going to star some big names. Big names.
This is sad.
So, forwards for Team Canada, Team A. So there's two different Team Canada teams, okay? Justin Azvedo.
All right.
Okay? Let's look him up. No, I'm not going to do this
How do you
game.
spell Azvedo?
Azevedo. Okay, you'll know this player. Gilbert Brûlé.
Yeah,
Remember him?
I've heard of him.
Yes. How about Brandon Buck?
Couldn't tell you.
You'll remember this one, though. Kevin Clark.
Kevin Clark. That does sound familiar.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not Chris Clark, the last captain of the Jets. It's Kevin Clark. I believe he played for the Moose at one point, but I could be wrong.
Sounds familiar.
Andrew Ebbett.
That sounds familiar.
Bud Holloway. The Klinkhammer, Rob.
Ooh.
Brandon Kozin. Thank you.
Winnipeg kid.
I love Brandon Kozin, by the way. Ben Maxwell. We all know who that is.
Hey.
Yeah. Brandon McMillan. Another name you'll know.
Yeah.
Eric O'Dell.
Hey, he's played for the Jets too.
Exactly. Daniel Payet.
Oh, okay.
Mason Raymond, former Moose. Maxime Talbot and Lyndon Vey.
Whatever happened to Talbot? Is Max Talbot the K?
I think he's somewhere. He must be overseas.
Huh.
Then for defense, Shea Genoway, Jeff Kinraid, Patrick McNeil, Maxime Noreau, Matt Robinson, Jonathan Sigalet, and Carl Stollery. Not heard of one of those players.
I have not heard of a single defenseman.
Goaltenders are Justin Peters, former goalie for the Charlotte Checkers, and then Kevin Poulin, formerly part of the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, so the New York Islanders.
Where's Tim Stapleton? Is he American?
Yeah, I think so. But there's more.
Timmy.
Ex-Jets / ex-Moose. Just wait for it. Taylor Beck. This is the second team.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
They have enough guys to make two teams?
They have enough guys to make two teams here. I'm not really sure how this is working out. This was all from Sportsnet. Forwards, Taylor Beck, Sean Collins, Corey Emerton, Ryan Garbett, Winnipeg.
There we go.
Andrew Gordon, David McIntyre, not Drew McIntyre, David. Jacob McFlickier. I'm sorry, Jacob. I'm going to fuck up your name. Trevor Parks, Marc-Antoine Pouliot, Derek Roy, that fossil.
Jeez.
Greg Scott, Paul, fuck that, Shura.
If we can't pronounce your name, you're
Chura.
not.
I'm going to go with Sechura because I've seen Kevin Churchman's name, and Churchman, you think is CH, it's CZ. Makes zero sense. This is Shura. Makes sense.
I like it.
SZCZE Chura.
I like it.
Get a better last name. James Wright, and then yes, James Wright. That James Wright. The guy.
Really?
You know what? I bet he'll score more goals in this tournament than he did all of that last season he played with the Jets.
Man, you forget who actually played for the Jets. It's amazing.
Yep. And then defensively, Cam Barker, Carlo Koliakovo, Stefan Elliott.
Carlo Koliakovo still plays hockey?
I think so.
Jeez.
Marc-Andre Gagnani, Kevin Klein, who could still be a formidable player in the NHL.
He retired, though.
I know. Sean Lalonde, Craig Shura, and then Ben Scrivens and Kevin Poulin again. So this is two different tournaments, I believe. There's one with the Sochi Open, and then the other one's the tournament of Nikolai Pushkov. So, no Patrice Cormier, none of the guys we mentioned last podcast, so clearly this isn't including most of the AHL guys. But based off these names, wow.
We're screwed.
I think Canada's going to have
You
some
figure
tough
Russia's
times.
going to have, Kovalchuk, Datsuk, Markov,
Ovechkin.
probably Ovechkin, if Malkin decides to go.
Yeah.
That's going to be a slaughter.
It won't even be fair. It's interesting, though, that, Dadonov came over and Shipopov
Do you think any...
came over.
There's so much talk about, Ovechkin and some of the Russian players. Do you think any Canadian players will say, I'm going? No. I know they interviewed Connor McDavid this week, and they asked him if he would go anyways, and he said no. He said he's really upset that they aren't going, but he said he's not going to bail on his team.
And Haley Wickenheiser had an interview today, and she said that she's very disappointed in the NHL that they're not going to the Olympics. Mm-hmm. Which it's coming from a player who is a amateur and saying that these professional players need to be there because it's not the same without them. Mm-hmm. And I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's 100%. It bugs me. It's going to be disappointing.
Yeah.
In all reality, I have a nephew who's 7 years old, and he's not going to get to watch the best players in the world play against each other in the Olympics. And to me, one of my favorite memories to this day is still watching, at 11 years old, watching Canada beat the United States at my friend's house sitting in his chair and all of us freaking out when Joe Sakic scored the sealer 5-2 goal against Mike Richter, and then you have the famous Bob Cole call.
Yep.
And all those feelings, and I just don't get that same feeling when I hear the name Taylor Beck or Cam Barker. As much as those guys are better hockey players than I'll ever be, regardless of that, when you're on a world stage, you want to see best on best.
What if they actually won? That'd be the most fucked up thing.
I think it'd be awesome.
It'd be great, but
I'd be okay with it. And I think that honestly, this could be an opportunity for guys like Mason Raymond, who are kind of on the edge. And the other guys that were left out of this, obviously, are the Jerome McGinleys.
I was going to say, some of these guys that maybe the veterans don't get signed.
Exactly. And then you have other guys going.
Shane Doan, Jerome McGinley.
Exactly. Those are guys they're looking at right now, right? Because they don't have a spot to play at the moment.
Yep.
So it could be interesting to see where that goes. I'm just still upset that they're not going to be there.
Part of me still thinks
they'll go.
They're going to go. It might be last minute.
Dude, could you imagine just January 1st?
Well, I was reading. I forget.
Gary Bettman comes out. He's like, "We're gonna go." Buries back down into
like I said, you think they're about to announce they announced Taylor Beck, and Sidney Crosby comes out with a steel chair, bats him in the back of the head, and rips off his shirt, and he's got a Team Canada jersey underneath.
No.
Swerve. Wrestling WWE swerve.
Here's what's gonna happen.
Canada would lose his mind.
This is what's gonna happen.
That'd be great.
You're gonna have SmackDown or Raw in a Canadian city. It'll be in Toronto or Montreal. For instance, it'll be in Montreal.
Not Winnipeg. No, never.
This is how it's gonna happen. It'll be in Montreal, and they'll be announcing one of the French players, Gilbert Brulé, and this is Canadian player going to the Olympics, Gilbert Brulé. Out comes out of nowhere Patrice Bergeron, steel chair.
Yeah.
Boom, and everyone goes nuts, and then he brings PK Subban, and everyone cries, and it's the best moment in sporting history.
And then they pick Gilbert Brulé up and give him a 3D through the table.
Exactly.
That's on fire. I wouldn't even. I just pay to see that. I wouldn't even care about the Olympics. I just pay to see that. Nothing.
What's wrong with Gilbert Brulé?
Nothing. But someone needs to be the guinea pig here.
And get thrown through a fire table.
Hey, they do it all the time.
No, not just a table. You're saying a table that's on fire.
They did it at least 3 times in wrestling. It's fine.
Yeah, but
it'll be fine.
You know who can't go through a table full of fire?
Probably a lot of people.
The Rock. Because he got so much oil that he would just engulf in flames.
That's true. He would die.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't want to see The Rock die.
Nope.
I like The Rock. He's a good actor. He's going to be in the upcoming Jumanji movie.
Jumanji.
A movie I will not go see.
I was going to say, I'm on the fence about that one. That'll probably be a download. No offense to The Rock, but that'll probably be a download.
I still haven't seen Central Intelligence, and I still have to see that movie. Wasn't that good?
It wasn't bad, but it could have been so much better.
I feel that The Rock and Kevin Hart could have really good chemistry together.
The thing is, if you watch any of their YouTube videos of them just screwing around, or there's interviews of them, there's an interview where they interview each other, but they're trying to be each other during the interview.
Oh, that's
it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But then their movies they make, I don't know.
No, that could be writing restrictions, right?
I just feel like it just feels forced because I think it's the way it's written.
Yeah. Because you have other people like Jake Gyllenhaal is actually really funny, and I've never seen him in a comedy role.
No, he's always in serious movies.
Yeah,
he usually dies in the movies he's in too.
Spoiler alerts.
I'm not telling you what movie he's in.
He's in lots of movies.
Yeah, he might or might not die in that movie.
Prisoners, great movie. He does not die in that movie.
Which one was that?
That's
Hugh Jackman, where his kids get kidnapped, right?
Yeah.
His daughter.
Yeah, his daughter gets kidnapped.
That was intense.
That's a good movie.
That was intense.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
What were we talking about?
Sports, hockey, wrestling as well.
That's a sport.
It's considered entertainment, yes.
Sports entertainment.
Sports entertainment. We had a YouTube comment last week, and I want to touch on it right now.
We did?
This is 2 weeks ago. What we thought of the whole McGregor-Mayweather thing. And I want to address that. First, I want you to answer that. I'm going to get into our YouTube and just go over our comments because we should get to them now. And then we'll talk about Markov and Johansen after.
Okay.
So, last thought about the Olympics. We both believe the NHL should go. We're not pumped about these lineups.
Part of me thinks they're going to go.
Okay. both of us are not pumped about these lineups, though.
No.
For the record. Okay. So, what was that? Yes. Mayweather, McGregor, they've had a ton of press conferences. There's tons of beef between the two of them. What do you think of the whole situation?
You know, I've only like heard, like, I actually haven't heard anything that's been said. I just heard people talking about it.
Yeah.
So I really can't really, I guess I couldn't really comment too much. I'm not a big UFC or boxing fan.
Okay.
I don't know. Can they both knock each other out at the same time? Because honestly, I don't like either of them. I respect what they do. I think they're both very good at what they do.
Yeah.
I just can't stand either of them, personally. I don't know. I mean, the press conferences and the trash talk, it's all for publicity, right?
Yeah.
They probably don't like each other. Like, I'm sure it's not, I'm sure they're not just saying it. I'm sure they don't like each other, but it's just publicity, right?
Yeah.
They'll get in the ring, they'll have their fight, Mayweather will probably run away for the whole thing. Somehow win.
Well, and that's the thing, is he's a boxer, right? And McDavid.
It is a boxing match, right?
But
This is how much I followed it.
Okay, so it's going to be a boxing match.
Yeah.
The thing is I feel like McGregor's going to go for big blows, and he's going to go for TK, like, he's going to go for KOs.
Try and knock him out, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas Mayweather's a more methodical fighter, where he's going to pick and choose the best sports analogy to kind of sum up their two styles, I would say, is NFL, think of game managing quarterbacks. Think of guys like Chad Pennington, guys like the one in Miami, I can't think of his name right, Ryan Tannehill. Mm-hmm. Guys that are going to go, they're going to nickel and dime you down the field. They're going to throw 5 to 10 yard passes. They're going to keep it safe. That's what Mayweather's like.
Yeah.
Then you've got the guys who throw Hail Marys every single play. And that's what McGregor's going to be like. There'll be the odd nickel and dime play, but he's all about the big play. He's all about throwing that big right hook or a nice uppercut, nice jab. That's going to be McGregor's style, I think, at least, for boxing. Just because I think that the way Mayweather fights and the way that he boxes, it's more of, I'm going to just out-endure you. I'm going to pick and choose my battles, go at the right times, and that's why he wins. And that's why he beat Pacquiao. Pacquiao was going for big punches, where Mayweather is considered a very boring fighter if you watch him. If you're an actual boxing fan, which I am not. I've had this explained to me that if you're an actual boxing fan, he's a really good boxer because he takes it to the last round. He's not going to be dirty for the most part, other than what he says to people, and he's going to fight. But all of this aside, my thought on the whole press conferences is they're doing nothing but growing each other's brands, making a ton of money, and growing exposure. The number one thing I feel the NHL doesn't do. They don't let this kind of thing happen. They like to nip any type of trash talk or bad talk in the bud right away. And it can be bad and it can look bad on people, but at the end of the day, it creates more exposure and creates more of a presence for those people.
Yeah.
One of the best analogies I can take right now, beyond this beyond this Mayweather-McGregor fight, is YouTubers in general, which is just totally a different topic, but YouTubers who generate a lot of drama and a lot of buzz about themselves by being very controversial get a lot more views, get a lot more new people to them because they're always around, they're always there. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you know about them, you hear about them because they're always doing something stupid, they're doing something controversial, and their name comes out of more and more people's mouths.
Yeah.
So you think about hockey players that people hate. Think about like the top 5 hockey players you hate. Like the Subbans, the Marchands, the Antoine Roussells. I'm just saying, hypothetically, those are the names because they're a bit bigger personalities. They're a bit douchier on the ice. They do the dirty, cheap shot, lowbrow stuff.
They can rub you the wrong way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why they're popular in certain places. Like, do you think Dustin Byfuglien's hated around the league? He is.
Oh, probably.
But he's loved here, and that's the type of thing because there's so much buzz around him. Yep. And I would love to see the NHL be able to hype up players more to get these types of, make these things more of a big deal. when the Flyers and Pens were at the height of their hatred for each other was when Claude Giroux straight up said, "I do not like Sidney Crosby," or one of the two of them said it about the other player.
Yeah,
that is what you need.
Yeah,
you need that because it creates more hype, it creates more tension, and fans are going to tune in to watch that. Do you remember a couple years ago, back when Boston and Montreal played each other, and there was all that tension and turmoil, there was all those fights? That was great. Vancouver, Toronto earlier this year. Yeah. When that happened, and then a couple guys were like, we're going to go after these guys. Creates more... I like it.
Makes people want to watch.
Exactly, and that's what the NHL needs. Okay, let's get to some comments, and then we'll get to some other stuff. So, Race Fan Rock says he thinks that the finals are going to be the Oilers versus Hurricanes this year. What do you think about
that? You know what? It's bold, but he's not totally wrong. I mean, I think Edmonton has a very good chance to be there.
Yeah.
I don't think Carolina will be that good yet, but they will be my dark horse to make the playoffs this year. Enough. Yeah. I don't think they'll be quite in the finals, but they're going to be a lot better than people think.
He also asked us to predict the playoffs next season. We're not doing that yet. We'll be doing that as...
The whole playoffs?
Yeah, I don't want to do that yet. We'll be doing that in a season preview type thing. We won't do it now because there's a lot of things that are going to change.
I can tell him one thing for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not picking Washington to win Stanley Cup this year.
Okay.
The last 2 years, it's not happening this year.
Then Cam commented, "What's up, motherfucker?" Oh, sorry. I misread. Luke commented, "What's up, motherfuckers?" Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's not very nice.
Got a few comments here from Ryan Lang, so thank you very much, Ryan, for commenting. If I were the Jets, I would concentrate on Ehlers, Trouba, Morrissey before anyone else for next year and try to trade Buff or see if Roslovic can replace Little or trade Matthew. I'm assuming that's Perreault. Yes. Or trade Wheeler, which I hope they don't do. As long as Kyle Connor and Vasilani get new contracts when their entry levels are up, I just hope the cap goes up because it would suck to lose any of those players who are elite.
Yeah. Well, and we've kind of talked about it. I think some of the guys that are going to be the victim of the salary cap are some of the veteran guys.
And he also commented later that the cap has to change or too many teams are screwed. And yes, Edmonton's GM did not help. This is in reference to, obviously, the Connor McDavid deal. Maybe this is Bettman's revenge on Canadian teams getting real good like Edmonton, Toronto, and Winnipeg. Those poor teams will lose good players to Vegas and Arizona. The Vegases and the Arizonas of the world. And maybe that was all in the cards all along, even though the Canadian teams are what keeps the NHL healthy. So I do believe that that's the point of the salary cap, is that instead of the rich continuing to get richer, it's more of a, okay, we're going to disperse some of our talent to the lesser teams. Columbus wouldn't be nearly as good as they are right now if there wasn't a salary cap. Because players like Hartnell wouldn't have gone there, Saad never would have gone there, the Jeff Carter deal never would have happened, which led to them getting Jack Johnson, which you could argue whether or not he's good or not. Bobrovsky never would have gone there. There would have been a whole bunch of variables that wouldn't have happened because of the fact that they're Columbus. But because we live in a salary cap era, they can be competitive. I think it's the same thing with Nashville. Same thing with many other... I don't think Winnipeg's is competitive if it's in a non-salary cap world.
I don't think they can afford to be.
They could.
Well,
they have the money, but it's, do you want to spend that much money?
But how much longevity is there in them?
Exactly.
In them spending that much money with the size of a city that Winnipeg is.
Okay, and Patrick Goulet commented, "I have a feeling Hellebyuck will outplay Mason," which is what Dan said. Race Fan Rocks, did you guys see the AHL schedule? If so, what games do you look forward to seeing? I'm going to go see the Moose and the Marlies. I always like watching those games. Marlies are my favorite AHL team, I guess, just because they're... Moose are great to watch. I like the Marlies because they're Toronto's farm team. What about you? Are you going to go see any games?
Maybe one or two. I don't know. To be honest with you, I think the Moose are going to be bad. They were bad last year.
Yeah.
They could be even worse this year.
I hope not.
Because they've lost a lot of players.
Okay. Do you think the new AHL team will come from an ECHL team?
Is there going to be a new AHL?
Well, there has to be somebody to take.
I guess first, right? Yeah. And they haven't announced anything like yet.
No,
that's weird.
No, because I don't know if they're winning. Maybe it will be an AHL team. I don't know.
Thought Vegas
or ECHL team.
I thought Vegas has an affiliate though.
They're sharing the Chicago Wolves.
But there has to be. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
It could be interesting.
The AHL confuses me because they're the only league where all their teams don't play the same number of games.
Yeah, they're weird.
So they could really do anything at this point. They could probably take the the Canadian Olympic team and make that their new team.
There you go. Perfect.
They should do that.
They should. Bring on Taylor Beck and
Yep.
Mason Raymond. That's fine.
Yep.
Elizabeth Bryant commented, I wish Mason was still in the Flyers because I hate the Jets. They are my least favorite team. Cameron.
Stop
Cam,
being different people.
I think I found a girl for you. You can ditch your SEAL wife up north, and this Elizabeth Bryant girl just sounds like a delight, and I think you'd really like her. Who is still in the Flyers. I hate the Jets. They're my least favorite team, and I love Mason. He is my favorite goalie.
Well, that's a conundrum for her then.
Yeah.
Because your favorite player's laying on your worst favorite and your least favorite team.
That's going to be interesting. I'm actually curious. Elizabeth, if you ever listen to this, tell me why you hate the Jets so much. I'd be curious. I'd be very curious.
Tell me why you like the Flyers so much.
Exactly. Well, I can tell you why. They're a fun team to watch. They're one of the last few fun teams to watch.
They were.
Okay, Ryan Lang. Teams in the Pacific have an unfair advantage playing Arizona, Vancouver, and Vegas, and will make it much harder for the Jets. Agreed. And the fact that they are the only bad team in the Central is Colorado. Agreed.
Oh, totally.
But you could also argue that there's mediocre teams in both divisions. Is Calgary that much better than Winnipeg? No. Even though they get to play these lower end teams more times, you still got to give Vegas the edge every once in a while. You got to still believe that Arizona's going to get a couple wins. It's not just like, every time they play, I think they play 4 or 5 times a year. Every time out of those 4 or 5 times, they're going to win. Remember, the Jets still play those teams 3 times.
Yep.
It's not like they don't get to play them. They still get them 3 times. So that's the important thing to remember is they get those teams maybe 1 or 2 less times than the other teams, and they can make up ground in that sense.
And you have to keep in mind, too, that if the Jets are going to be a wild card, that hurts them. If they're going to be a division team, doesn't matter because every other team in their division plays the same teams they do.
Yeah.
And if you're going on paper, if you're gonna do the paper test right now and kind of compare things on paper, I think the Jets have a pretty good chance to be one of the top 3 teams in the Central. If there's ever a year for them to do it, this is it, in my opinion. Yeah. I think Chicago is going to drop off. I think St. Louis is going to drop off. I think Nashville will be good. I think Minnesota will be good. I think Dallas will be good. But I think Winnipeg's right up there with those teams.
Yeah, and I think we're going to talk about it more moving forward, especially because August is normally a month where we like to preview each division. And I'm looking very forward to talking about the Pacific Division because that division, to me, has the most question marks. What is San Jose going to do now without Patrick Marleau? Are they too old to really be that strong anymore? What's Vegas going to be like? What's Arizona going to be like? Are they going to be better because they're a young team with some good young talent on it? There's a lot of question marks that could reveal some very interesting situations for the NHL, of course. Yeah. One of the big things that came out of the NHL today, obviously, was the Ryan Johansen signing. 8 years at $8 million per for your number 1 center in Nashville. I still firmly believe that they could have won that series against Pittsburgh if he's healthy. He would have made such a difference.
He's definitely a very important player for them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, he makes Victor Arvidsson and...
Having said that, I don't think he's worth the money they just paid him.
Really?
I don't. No way. I get that he's a first-line center. I get that he's still on the younger side of his career. But the dude puts up 60 points. $8 million. Like, to me, I get that, like, being a center bumps the value up. I get he's very important to that team. But $8 million.
He had 13 points in the playoffs, though.
I guess, but...
13. I'm not defending the contract. I think
they paid too much.
I think it is a little bit on the high end, but...
That's just my opinion.
I think this is also a good barometer to other teams that are going to be signing centermen soon. Or signing any type of player. This is... I'm looking at this and I'm saying, how could Leon Draisaitl make more? I know I don't want to harp on this too much because we've talked about it a lot, but how through 2 years is Leon Draisaitl going to make more money than Ryan Johansen?
If he puts up 80 points a year, he deserves it. Compared to Johansen's 60
every year. Johansen also has a 71 point campaign.
I know, but
when he was in Columbus, he scored 30 goals once.
To me, it's
He's not.
Too
He's
much
become more
money.
of a support role guy.
Maybe this is just what maybe that's the going rate for him right now. Maybe that's what it is.
I think they just signed it to keep him happy.
Because
to be honest,
I'll read a tweet from James Myrtle. I'm
Yeah.
assuming this is based on the Johansen contract.
Yeah.
It said Mark Scheifele's contract looks like a steal right now. Young scorers are getting paid more than ever.
Yeah. And the other difference is Mark Scheifele has the potential to score 30 goals, 30 to 40 every year. Ryan Johansen is more of a support player. Where he's
I
gonna
get
score
that
20 to
Johansen,
30.
like, he has the potential to do that, but
He's not. No, I don't think Johansen's a 30 goal scorer.
I
don't think
honestly.
I don't think you say to yourself, Ryan Johansen's my 30 goal scorer on my team, because they have Philip Forsberg, they have Victor Arvidsson. They don't need Ryan Johansen to be the 30 goal scorer. They can have him be a 20 goal scorer and still be effective. To me, I feel that Ryan Johansen is what I thought Austin Matthews was going to be, just better. Like a 20 to 30 goal scorer and a guy who's going to score 70, 80 points a season and be dominant whenever he's on the ice. And Ryan Johansen, you know when he's on the ice, he's not an invisible player. Yeah. He made that very apparent in the playoffs in the games that he played. Scoring 13 points in 14 games. He controls the puck. He controls the play. I like him. I don't know if this is one of those contracts that he could be worth it in the end, or it could look bad. But Hoyle knows what he's doing.
How old is he?
24.
So he'll be 32 when it's over. I mean, for the age, I get it.
You're banking on, but when you're signing a contract like this, you're banking on the salary cap.
It's not a terrible deal. I think they pay too much. That's my opinion.
Fair enough.
I mean, can you imagine if Mark Scheifele was a free agent this year after the last 2 years he's had?
Well, after last season. Yeah.
And
if he was an RFA.
He had 70 some odd points a year before. He had 82 points last year.
Yeah.
He'd be getting paid big time right now.
It's interesting.
Like, he'd be close to, like, he'd be close to 10. He'd be close to the double digits.
It would have been 8.5.
Yeah.
Here's the other argument. How can Ryan Johansen only be making $500,000 less than Steven Stamkos?
Well, that's the thing too, right? And it's stupid.
Like, do you think Steven Stamkos, he could, like, hicking himself that he's like, maybe I should have signed in another market, like, gone to Toronto and make $13 million a season? Because he could have done it. John Tavares is going to do it. Like, if I'm John Tavares, I'm not signing for anything less than 12.
Yeah. Well, in the next 2 or 3 years, salaries for these players are just going to be like through the roof.
But is this
like gone are the days where you get a guy like Blake Wheeler for $5.75?
Yeah. Yeah, now you're paying $7.75.
He's asking for $8 million when his contract's up.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's going to be 32 years old. If he puts up 80 points for the next 2 years, he's going to ask for it.
You're basically paying.
That's what he's worth.
You're basically paying $800 or $100,000 per point.
Like, it's just like
Yeah.
gone are those days when you can get a player like that for the salary that they did. It's just it's not going to happen.
You're paying $100,000 per point.
And that's why guys like Jacob Trouba are going to ask for $8 million, and Patrick Laine is going to get $10 million, and Ehlers is going to get $8 million. Like, it's
Why
ridiculous.
couldn't the Jets have been good 5 years ago? Why couldn't the Leafs have been good 5 years ago? It would have been easier.
It's going to go through the whole league. Like,
Yeah, it's going to create depth issues because the salary cap's just not going to be able to support it, and this is why we're going to a lockout, is because the players have their value, because they're... I think the problem is you look at the other 3 major sports and you say, David Carr just got signed for $25 million, I believe it was, this season, or $30 million, whatever it was. He's the highest paid quarterback, highest paid player in the NFL now.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to the NBA and you got Steph Curry making $50 million a season. Then you go to the MLB and you got like Bryce Harper going to be signing like a $250 million contract. And the NHL guys are saying, where is our piece of the pie? Why are we not big enough? And I don't know if it's greed on the players' part, if it's just the fact that it's time for bigger contracts to come in, and we're going to see more of a quality thing across the league where every team has 2 or 3 guys worth $25 million, and that's the way it is, like it is in every other sport. But hockey's different than every one of those sports. Yep. Basketball, you can win with 3 guys, so your salary cap can be watered down by 3 guys. If you have 3 guys making $85 million, great. You got to pay the rest of your guys $15 million. Not hard to do.
Yep.
NFL, you can pretty much fit anything in. You're going to get luxury taxed. It's not the end of the world. Baseball's all done by payroll, so teams like the Yankees are always going to stay rich. So it's the fact that the NHL is a different enigma because it's the only... there's a lot of similarities between the NHL and the NFL where you can't win with one player, but would a team, because a lot of people feel that a goaltender in hockey is as important as quarterback, would a team pay their goalie to, other than Montreal, because of Carey Price, to be their best player? Like, do you think that Washington now, let's say they had to sign Braden Holtby and Alex Ovechkin next year, same age, both 25 right now, both completed, you know, let's say Holtby just got the Vezina and Ovi just got the Rocket Richard. Ovi just scored 60. Holtby just stopped everything except in the playoffs. Who are you signing for more money? And that's where the difference comes in the NHL.
Why GMs get paid millions of dollars
exactly.
to decide that? Because I don't want to have
where my argument is coming is, in the NFL, when you're just deciding between a quarterback and a wide receiver, the money's going to the quarterback because the wide receiver is replaceable.
Yeah, and like you said, hockey's not as simple.
No, it's not.
One team that could be a goalie that makes your team.
That's
the other team it could be your whole top six. It could be one guy. I mean,
that's why I think that this whole, if they're chasing those contracts, if the players are chasing those contracts, that's wrong, and somebody needs to explain to them that this is separate, that these leagues are different, they're not dependent on each other, and we need to grow hockey to that point. I'd never want to see a hockey player be making $50 million a season.
Yeah.
$10 million, I'm still like, why didn't I try harder? I could have, like, I would be happy in my world right now to be making $80,000 a season. There is no way that you can get an NHL player to sign right now if he scores more than 40 points a year for less than $5 million. And that's in the world we live in now with NHL. And it's just, I don't know if they've lost grip. I don't know if the agents are asking for too much or the GMs just think that, oh, we can figure it out later. We're going to be hitting a stride here where we are potentially going to hit the third lockout in 15 years.
And it's sad that, 3 years out, they're already talking about it? Like,
and the players don't seem to care.
They're already talking about it. They're already putting, contracts are being structured
for it
to protect from a lockout. Like, it's sad that they it's sad.
So there has to be, the owners keep blaming the players keep blaming the owners. At some point, one of them has to turn around and say, maybe we should stop doing this and stop hurting the cycle, and say to the guys like Ryan Johansen or whatever, say, you're not worth 8, I'm not paying you 8, I'm paying you 6.5. And that's what it comes down to. You don't want to play hockey? That's fine. That's what the Jets did to Jacob Trouba, and he came back.
Yeah.
Because they said, you're not worth... we're not paying you that. At some point, there needs to be a breaking point where either the owners give in and say, okay, well, we just got to make the salary cap higher. Because right now, it's not, in a sense, it's to keep owner expenses low. That's why there's the salary cap. Is so they're not inflating everything, right? That's why that's there. It's to keep things fair in their minds, but to keep everything in a consistent pace and a consistent spending amount, so teams know what to spend at. So maybe the owners say, okay, maybe we're not going to take as big of a piece of a pie from the Rogers deal or from the NBC deal. Maybe the players can get more. So the salary cap can then go from 71 million or 73 million up to 85.
Yep.
So then we have room to sign these big contracts. Or the GMs grow some nuts and say, we're not signing you for that, and someone else has to, but the GMs have to collectively do it. Not one GM say, I'm not going to do that, another GM go around and say, I will, and hurt the rest of the league because of it. Mm-hmm. And that's what the situation we're in right now is. A couple GMs have decided this is the way we want to run things, the Jets being one of them, by giving their players reasonable contracts and telling their players to shove it when they don't believe that they're worth the money they're worth, and that these players think they're worth. And then you have other GMs like Peter Chiarelli that oversign guys and trade guys like no one's business. But
yeah, that's the state of hockey right now.
That's the Greg Rant for the day. So I don't know if Ryan Johansen's overpaid. I don't really care that much at the end of the day. This must have been why they were obviously they weren't happy losing James Neal, but they were okay with it because they knew they had to sign him.
They need him. So I mean,
they do need Ryan Johansen.
They might have just had to bite the bullet and say, you know what,
$8 million. But
maybe he's worth, if he's not worth 8, maybe he's worth 6. But at the end of the day, if $2 million is going to keep him happy for 8 years, it's going to make you a better team.
He makes them a better team.
Right, you know.
Definitely will keep the Philip Forsbergs and Victor Arvidssons happy. We'll keep those two guys very happy because he'll be in the middle. Like, they have a solid top line, and they have
they've
them signed. They have them signed long term.
Team.
So I don't think it's that big of a concern. But I think I'm going to enjoy sitting back and watching to see who breaks first. If it's going to be the ownerships or the ownership groups, or if it's going to be the players. Because I can tell you there's a few ownership groups that are sick and tired of the players' shit, and there's probably a few players sick and tired of the ownership shit, and I think there's got to be a lot of players that are sick and tired of not being able to play hockey in the NHL because bureaucracy. And there's got to be somebody in the ownership groups that are saying, we have a commissioner that's going into his 4th lockout potentially since he started.
Yep.
And I will beat the dead horse until that dead horse... I don't know. But Gary Bettman should not be the commissioner of the NHL. He just shouldn't be. He's done...
What's it going to take for them to change that? Because it's been so long
But he
now.
makes the owners money, and that's why he's still around. Yeah. The owners are making more money now than they used to because they're not paying players exorbitant amounts of money.
Yeah.
Right? There's a salary cap now to protect that, right? Yep. They're getting more of the pie from the TV deals. Stuff like that. And we're going to see sponsorships on jerseys soon, which I've come to terms with. It's going to happen, let's be honest here. And whatever can make the league more revenue. So from that point of view, the owners are saying, well, he's made us more money. Why are we going to change him? There's no point, right?
Yep.
We're winning. So what if the players are losing? And people don't realize that if you can't keep your employees happy, even though your bottom line's great, you can't keep your employees happy, well, they're going to go elsewhere, as we've seen players go and leave to the KHL. Even though the KHL isn't great hockey, it is still pretty damn good.
Yep.
And they're getting paid more money. There is no other professional sport other than hockey that has a Tier 2 league have more players go to it because they believe that they'll make more money there.
Yep.
Unless I'm incorrect, most Premier League players for soccer or football, however you want to word it, Premier League players like Cristiano Ronaldo aren't going to leave because they're going to make more money in the MLS. They're just not. Right? You might have guys, second-rate players, the Andrei Markovs of the world, say, I'm going to make more money playing in Russia, or playing in the MLS, we'll say, for analogy purposes, than I will playing in Premier League because I'm not worth as much, but there I can play for more, right? Yep. So there's that comes into play. And if the KHL continues to grow and brands out into China, the NHL has an issue with being able to keep players and compete with that league.
Yep.
So they're one of the few leagues that has to compete with someone else all the time to try to keep players here. Because there should have been never an opportunity for Pavel Datsyuk, one of the best players to play, to leave. There should have never have been an opportunity for Ilya Kovalchuk to leave.
Yep.
You don't see Tom Brady saying, you know what, guys, I've signed my max contract, but you know what, I'm going to go play in that European league and go have some fun. Mm-hmm. You don't see that happen. You don't see James Harden going, I'm going to leave the NBA and go play in Argentina. Or whatever it might be, right? You don't see that happening. Unless they're not good enough for the top league anymore, they don't go play there. For instance, Andrei Markov is plenty good enough to still be an NHL player.
Yeah. He
could be a competent bottom 2 guy defensively on most teams. But he couldn't find a place. He outpriced himself from the market, first of all. Well, I also don't think he would have played anywhere other than Montreal. Well, but now he's gone to KHL.
I was just going to say, what I read is apparently he didn't even take offers from other teams.
Yeah, he just wanted to play in Montreal.
He waited for Montreal. Montreal said no, and he left.
Well, it's because Montreal wasn't going to pay him $4 million or whatever he wanted, $3.5.
And if you thought
but he can get the money somewhere else.
And if we thought Montreal's defense wasn't already bad, they signed Mark Streit. Yeah, because he's going to make up for Markov. I'm shaking my head right now because he's not.
I was actually going to make that point. I don't like harping on. I've made too much fun of the Habs and their defensive core. But they've now.
I don't think you're making fun of them. I think you're just
this summer now.
You're objectively looking at them.
They have lost Nathan Beaulieu, Alexei Emelin, Mikhail Sergachev, and Andrei Markov, and have brought in David Schlemko, Mark Streit, and Carl Alsner. In what world is that better than what you had before? No world.
Yep.
Never.
Yep.
Never is better.
Yep.
So.
But they have Carey Price, so they might be okay.
Exactly. Okay.
But I think we covered it all, hey?
Yeah, I'm reeling from that last little rant there.
That rant, you feeling good?
I'm feeling good. I'm happy. I probably won't fall asleep on the road now.
Well, I